Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Society's 2025 Annual General Meeting. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome members and to thank you for making the time to join us, whether you're online or in the room. I'm Irene Kirkman, your Society President, and it's my pleasure to be with you this Saturday morning. This is one of the key formal opportunities members get each year to hear from the board and management on how the Society is doing and to ask questions and challenges on our performance. We're holding the meeting both in person and online, so I should let you know that we are live streaming to allow those who've not been able to come here today to log on and contribute as if they were here in person. So I'm pleased to tell you that online we have 99 people and in person 61. We're quorate, so we're good to go. Thank you, members. As ever, it's great to have such good engagement. Again, we encourage you to ask any individual queries you have to our elected members and colleagues after the meeting or through our usual online channels. Okay. So I've been given an incomplete script here, but never mind. Here's one I made earlier. Yeah. If you're online, you'll see on the left-hand tab you've got a messaging and documents tab. Hopefully it's self-explanatory, but for ease, the messaging tab allows you to ask a question at any time throughout the meeting or to ask for technical support. And the documents lab allows you to view your member pack. When it comes to voting, a voting tab will appear once the voting is open, so don't worry that you can't see it now. If the voting technology fails, we'll give it another couple of goes, and if that still doesn't work, then members in the room will be asked to vote by raising hands, and those of you online will be invited to a short online session on 29th May at 6 p.m. to vote on the various resolutions being proposed today. Hopefully that's not something we'll need to do and the technology will go right. But we felt it was worth mentioning in advance just in case something does go wrong. Whether you're online or here in person, we really want you to feel it has all been worth your while. We've spent a lot of time planning what we hope will be an informative and enjoyable meeting where you'll be able to participate, contribute, ask questions and find out more about the Society. And before we start, I need to let those in the room know that we're not expecting any fire drills. So if the alarm goes, we all need to exit via the nearest fire exit, which I'm told is here. With that all covered, we can make a start.
Just introduce us.
Yes. This is your annual meeting, a meeting of owners of mid-counties sharing common values and interests. And we've got two purposes. The meeting to look back at the past year to understand how the Society has performed and to make sure we've kept cooperative values alive and at the heart of our activities. And we're going to transact some formal business together as owners and members of the Society. And now to introductions. On my right, I've got Phil, our Chief Executive, on the left, Edward, the Secretary, Peter Kelly, our Chief Financial Officer, and Pete Westall, our Chief Values Officer. And online we have Sarah Dunham, who's our National Businesses Chief Officer, and in the room, Michelle Kem, our Chief People Officer. I'd also like to introduce board members in the room. So we have, if you'd like to stand up, show yourselves. Yeah, and they're here to talk to you and you can ask them questions after the meeting. So I'm going to go through the agenda now briefly. First, we're going to have a presentation from the Chief Executive on the Society's performance throughout the 2024-25 financial year. We'll then have a video update from our Member Engagement Committee, followed by some more formal matters that we must attend to. The approval of certain minutes, adopting the annual report and accounts, reappointing our auditors, the approval of distributions, and review of our remuneration report. Then we'll hold a special meeting where our Secretary and Head of Governance will present a rule change for members' consideration. We'll then have a question and answer session ahead of the voting, which we plan to do all in one go, as that makes the meeting run more smoothly. We'll wrap up with any other business and announce the voting result before we conclude the meeting. I'll now hand over the reins to Phil, who will talk you through the Society's performance for the year, supported by Peter Kelly and Pete Westall. Over to you, Phil.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I don't think I've ever presented at an AGM sat in an armchair before, so if I sort of look I'm a little bit laid back, I don't feel laid back, but it's a new way of sitting and presenting to you here. So, okay, in a moment I'm going to talk to you about the results for last year, and Peter and Pete will give you some more information around the financial and non-financial elements. I want to pick up on some of the highlights for last year, but also talk about some of the more immediate challenges we have as a society that I can share with you as members. And I think when we look at the results for last year, we should do so in the context of what's going on across the world. Because I don't know about you, but it feels to me as if it's an ever more uncertain world right now. I think United Nations have stated that there are twice as many conflicts in the world today as there were just at the start of 2020, 5 years ago. Also, that 83 million people have been displaced by conflict or disaster. Pretty unsavoury place. And added to that, the world economic output is forecast to grow this year by 2.4%, which is down from 2.9% last year, and that's as a direct result of the international trade wars that are going on right now that have been instigated by the new administration in the US. So on a world scale, a lot of uncertainty and instability. And here in the UK, we have a new government that are looking to get to grips with fixing public services, and as they do so, not wanting to impose tax burdens on hard-working families, and therefore asked businesses to bear the brunt of those tax increases through that national insurance increase for employers. And now for us, in this year alone, in addition to the national living wage increases, that means an increase of £9.8 million to us this year in our operating costs for people. But we absolutely recognise what the government's trying to do in terms of improving public services, but we are bearing a fair brunt of that. So, as we look at the year ahead, obviously that presents challenges for us. And obviously more immediately right now, one of the other things that we are obviously all aware of is the cyber attacks that have taken place on Marks and Spencer's recently, and probably more relevant and important to us in many ways, the Co-operative Group. Now, as I put in my email to you as members last week, and as we put on our website, through our social media channels, I would reassure you that none of our systems have been accessed by hackers, that our member data is held entirely separately from the Co-operative Group's member data, and our systems have not been breached. So I'd reassure you on that, so you don't have to worry about your mid-counties membership in respect of that. However, the Co-op Group did have a breach to their membership system, and as a result of it, took the very brave and I think bold decision to switch off access to all their IT systems. They worked really quickly to do that, and what that meant was that from the 2nd of May to the 14th of May, we were removed access to our supply chain system. So 95% of the food sold in our food stores is distributed to us by the Co-operative Group through the national supply chain network. So they switched all the systems off, which meant we couldn't place orders into that network from the 2nd of May to the 14th of May. Neither could any co-op across the UK, that's 4,000 stores, unable to place orders. That relates to about 17 million cases of stock in that period of time that couldn't be processed through that system. And now I'm pleased to say that the systems were switched back on the 14th of May, and we are processing orders through now. But you can imagine that's taking some time to recover from. We are now in a recovery process, because obviously you've got to replenish all that volume that was lost out of the business. And some stock was pushed in manually, and we did some really good work with local suppliers. To just give you some sort of updates on this week, up until this morning, we've distributed 532,000 cases of stock this week into our stores. And that's a 43% increase on the same period last year, when it was 380,000 Okay? And 121,000 of those cases have come from local and direct suppliers. Last year, that was 25,000. So a really supreme effort by all of our food team, people working our stores here at Warwick, to get us back into a recovery position, and great support from many of our local suppliers, people like Mudwall's Produce, Eden, Frozen Foods, SOS Ambient, Best Way Cash and Carry, Nicer Cash and Carry, Blakemore Spa, Cook's Frozen Food, really stepped up to support. And the Co-operative Group are doing a tremendous job in recovering across that huge network of stores. And because let's face it, this wasn't their doing, this was an illegal act by some pretty unsavoury characters, and they are having to respond to that. So we wish them well with their endeavours. I wanted to reassure you as members that we're not affected, and also to say that we are now recovering, and hopefully, as we go into some nice weather again in the week ahead and into early June, you'll see your stores back to normal. Last year, when I presented, I did so against our new purpose and the trust pillars which underpin that purpose. Here they are. And intend to do exactly the same again this year. I think that was a good format. So we're going to work through each of these trust pillars. And we'll start with the first T, which is a thriving cooperative. A thriving cooperative is not just about financial outputs, as you know as members, it's also about non-financial areas as well. And my colleagues here will take you through the financial and non-financial elements in a moment or two. But just before I hand over to Peter Kelly, I just want to share some of my highlights from the year. So firstly, operating profit. So that's our profit from our operations, up before significant items by 18%. Our travel revenue was up by 6.1%. Now that's actually £36 million more through our travel business than the year before. And our early years business, our childcare nurseries, revenue's up by 9.1%. With that increased occupancy as a result of the great work that has been done by our early years team. All of our nurseries are outstanding or good, as rated by Ofsted, and we are still rated that way. And so, some really good work as we've driven that improvement across that business. And probably one that's really outstanding for members in the room, 44% of our transactions last year were with our members. That's the highest ever number that we have recorded, and it's up from 37% in 2023. So some really good results, and I think represents a solid performance for your society last year. Now what we do have to do, however, is to face into some realities, because whilst that was a good result last year, we are forecasting a reduction in profitability this year. And the reason is because of those aforementioned challenges we're seeing on a macro scale, but also those increased employment costs, because we're not anticipating passing on all those employment costs, that £9.8 million increased cost, through to you as members in retail prices in our food stores in particular. And of course, bear in mind also that our suppliers are facing those same increased costs in their employment costs, and therefore they're looking to pass some of that through in increased cost prices to us as well. So we're being prudent with our forecast. We are forecasting a downturn, and as a result of that, we're having to make some difficult decisions, and your board are making some difficult decisions. Holding this AGM here today, making use of this fabulous facility at Warwick, clearly is saving us money because we own the building and the asset. We're not having to pay to hire a venue. Hopefully next year we'll be back to a bigger venue and a festival, but that was one of the decisions taken by the board. The majority of our colleagues are receiving pay rises of over 6%. So of our 6,100 colleagues, the majority are getting pay rises over 6%. But those that aren't are getting pay rises around 1 or 2%. Again, a difficult decision for the Remuneration Committee and our HR function to take, but the right decision. And also, if you've read my report, you'll know that the board are not recommending to pay an individual share of profits this year to members, because we want to preserve the cash to invest in our businesses, to invest in new stores, new nurseries, and also new IT systems as well. So those are some of the hard decisions that are being taken on your behalf, placing the society's interests for the long term at the heart of those decisions. I'll now hand over to Peter Kelly, who's going to take you through the financial numbers.
Great. Thank you, Phil. And as Phil said, I'm going to continue the review of the year by looking at the financial results, and then I'll hand over to our Chief Values Officer, Pete Westall, who will look at the non-financial results and effectively what we call the steering wheel. Before I get into the sort of financial highlights, I will acknowledge, and you'll see in the annual report and accounts, that actually the Society did make a loss over the year, and that loss was £6.5 million. Now, that loss was about half of what it was last year. It was 11.8 in the previous year, and actually there were two a couple of non-financial impairments we made in the year, both totaling about 5.4 million. So actually, that sort of underlying loss was a bit less than that, but nevertheless, it was a loss. Despite that, we do have some positive trading highlights to report to members this year. And I've shown 3 graphs here. The first 2 represent the top line trading, so the cash that comes through our society, and that first graph actually is our gross sales. So you can see across the year we actually grew gross sales by £33.9 million, or about 2.2%. So they now stand at just over 1.5 billion. So that's sort of the cash coming through our society. And actually, in our annual report and accounts, we show a graph that's 5 years, and actually we've done that in every year of the last 5 years. So we're still growing the top line as a society, and that's what we did last year. Pleasingly, that is also being represented in profit. So it's not just the top line that's coming through, and Phil mentioned 1 or 2 of the sort of inflationary costs we see elsewhere in the profit and loss, but ultimately we're seeing that coming through as operating profit as well. So the second graph in the middle there, which is operating profit before the sort of one-off and significant items, is up by 15.8%, or 1.5 million. So that stands at £11 million and is up from previous years. The final graph I will come back to, but that shows the operating profit when you add in those significant items. And what you can see is there's not a lot of change between operating profit before and after significant items in the current year. It's only about £400,000. But when you look at last year, there's a very big change, and I'll come on and explain why that is the case. So in conclusion, the society has traded positively this year, both in terms of top line sales and also in operating profits. If we strip that down a little bit more and look at gross sales split by the main divisions that we have here in society, the 2 divisions we look at are effectively our food and post office division, and then what we call national businesses. National businesses comprise our travel business, our early years business, and to a smaller extent, our utilities business. And what you can see in that slide is actually our food and post office business actually saw a reduction in sales last year of £5.6 million. Actually, our post office business actually improved by 4.9%. So actually, post office grew, and actually our food business that reduced by £5.6 million, or 0.8%. Now, the reason for that is we've actually got 10 less stores, and we exited some of our non-strategic stores. We actually exited from 13 stores last year and actually grew by 3 stores. So there was a net 10 reduction from 304 to 294. So there were less stores last year, and that explains why the sales reduced there. But on an underlying basis, the food business did record positive like-for-like sales in those sort of non-portfolio movements of 1.3%. So on an underlying basis, the food business is moving forward. The national business there, you can see quite a significant increase of £39.5 million, and that is largely driven by travel, which increased 8.9% over the year, and early years had increased 4.9%. So national business is growing pretty strongly, food on an underlying basis growing as well. When you look at the same split for operating profits, obviously there's that graph that shows we grew the society's operating profit by 1.5 million over last year. But what you can see there when you look at food and post offices is actually that was a reduction of £0.9 million. Now that reduction doesn't come from the loss of those 10 stores I mentioned on the previous slide, because actually the majority of those 10 stores were actually loss-making stores. So actually they actually improved this result. Where that result comes from is effectively, as Phil mentioned just then, the growth in some of our costs, particularly our wage costs. Last year, national living wage increased 10.2%, and our like-for-like sales in stores increased 1.3%. So that was why food, was slightly less profitable last year. That said, we are investing in lots of productivity improvements, whether they be self-checkouts, whether they be task optimization, automation in store, whether it be electronic shelf edge labels. We're investing in processes that mean that actually we can counter those growth in operating costs, and particularly personnel costs. And then when you look at national businesses, when you look at it on the whole there, it looks like, or it has actually gone down by £0.4 million, but actually when you split that between travel and childcare, childcare. Travel saw a reduction of £1.7 million year on year last year, albeit £1.1 million of that was because in the previous year there was a sort of one-off benefit coming out of the unwind of some liabilities around COVID that sort of boosted last year's performance in travel. So whilst travel did actually reduce slightly last year, that was because largely we had that sort of one-off movement in liabilities. Childcare actually increased its profitability. Now for about £4 million operating profit increased by £600,000 year on year. We've seen the affordability of childcare, we've seen occupancy grow, we've seen the sort of government support come into that sector, and that certainly has benefited through the year. So childcare has grown, and the other business, our utilities business, in the prior year made a loss of £0.6 million, and actually in the year we're reporting here made a slight profit of £100,000. So on an underlying basis, both in sales and in profits, the society is moving forward. I said I would come back to this slide. Why does our operating profit, when you add in all the significant items, look so different year on year? Well, I mentioned there was very little change between our operating profit before and after significant items in the current year. It's about £400,000. There were some quite large movements that were largely offsetting. The first was we made £4.1 million on disposal of 22 properties actually across the year, and that generated some cash. I'll come on to that in a moment. But it made a profit of £4.1 million. We treat that as one-off and exceptional. We don't put that in our operating profit. And the second thing is, and I mentioned it when I talked about the overall loss of the society, we actually impaired some of our capitalised leases on 5 loss-making stores in the year, and we took that through the accounts this year. So that's what happened this year. I won't go through all of this, but I will talk about last year and why that's only 0.2 million. And that's because last year, if you remember, we saw a reduction in the valuation of our properties. We value our properties every single year, as we did this year. Last year we saw a reduction in the valuation of our properties, and we put that through the books at £5.6 million. And unlike the profit on disposal we made this year of 4.1, we made a loss last year. So that's why it sort of distorts the year-on-year impression when you add significant items on. And then just to remind members that it is our strategy to continue to invest in the future of the society. £17.3 million we invested last year, which was up by £1.9 million on the previous year. I'll come on to where we've made those investments, but it's important we make those investments, whether it be in new stores, refurbishments, energy efficiency, technology, etc., because that is the bedrock of the society's future. Over the last 3 years, we've made £49.5 million investment, and as I say, last year it was £17.3 million. Net debt has come down. Net debt's come down by £2.8 million versus last year. So it's pleasing that we are able to make capital investments and reduce net debt as we did last year, and we will hopefully have a further reduction in net debt last year. I said I would just give you an impression of where we have invested £17.3 million. I'm not going to go into great detail of everything on this slide because much of this is covered a bit later on in the presentation, but needless to say there's lots of energy efficiency investments, whether it be new refrigeration, LED and HVAC, heating and ventilation controls, or whether it be sort of process improvements such as electronic shelf edge labels, keeping our stores and colleagues safe with Safe Store programme, or the growth in portfolio. There were 2 new nurseries last year, 3 new food stores, and there were 7 nursery refurbishments. So we've been putting that investment into society, and you can see some of the areas where that has happened. And then finally, just to talk about distributions. Obviously, a bit later in the meeting, we will be proposing the recommendations from the board to members for distributions this year. Because we're talking about the accounts last year, this actually reflects what the AGM and members voted for last year. And you'll see the difference in terms of the payments to and on behalf of members of 2.1 this year. That is that's just under £1 million lower than last year. And that comes because this year we're not making a personal share of profits recommendation, and there is a proposal, whilst we're still making a community share of profits recommendation, that is at a lower level. We actually put the accrual in the accounts for those when members transact with us, and that was last year, so that's why that is £1 million lower, but nevertheless it's a distribution of £2.1 million. That was fairly whistle-stop tour through the sort of highlights of the year from a financial perspective, and I'm now going to hand over to your Chief Values Officer, Officer Pete Westall, who's going to take you through the non-financial highlights through the steering wheel. Thanks.
Thanks, Peter. So Peter's mentioned a lot of numbers, all of which are financial. Phil mentioned about us being a thriving co-op, and one of the ways we measure ourselves as a thriving co-op is other measures which aren't financial. So we've got a steering wheel which guides our progress, and that steering wheel talks about 12 different areas, 12 different numbers, and we'll canter through those in a minute. Phil, I know you're going to pick up on some of these as we go forward, so we'll try and do edited highlights on these if we can. So the first one we talk about is members. Clearly most important, we're us as a successful consumer cooperative. And Phil's already mentioned about Remember Trading there at 44%. The bit which, I guess, if I was sitting in the audience or online at the moment, I'd be saying, well, hang on, why has your member involvement gone down a little bit? And as a reminder, we do three things really with member involvement. The first one we do is talking about members voting. It is really important as a healthy cooperative that we have democratic elections and healthy contested elections. And delighted to say that the amount of members voting this year went up by 40%. We've also got a range of really good events, join-in events, organised by our Member Engagement Committee, many of whom are online or in the room at the moment, and they're opportunities for members to come together. We had a brilliant session last Tuesday organised by Lee Franklin, talking about the bees that we've got on site at Warwick and talking about beekeeping and so on. But the crucial point that's gone down is members responding to our insight questions. So that's really important because this gives you as members opportunity to adjust our goods, our services, what we're doing, how we give you an opportunity to get involved. So that's a real point we've then looked at for this year to say how do we get more segmented, more targeted to drive that response up. And I'm delighted your Member Engagement Committee, together with the board, is an area we're really focusing on. Go back one, sorry, because it's one bit that Phil's going to talk about later as well. Over 200,000 members have joined us over the course of the last 2 years. That's real evidence, I think, of a thriving co-op, and I think Phil's going to mention a little bit about that in a bit. So when we come to people, and the first measure we have on there is the pride element. Are you proud to work for a society? Over 75% the score is those who agree or strongly agree with that. I'm one of them. Why do I strongly agree? A couple of things, really. One is about the partnerships, which Phil's mentioned, and a lot of work we do with people in the local communities to drive impact. One is about our place in the cooperative movement worldwide. It's the International Year of Cooperatives this year. Really important, and big counties do that. But probably the most important to me is the things our colleagues are doing to facilitate self-help amongst themselves. The work that Michelle, our people officer, is doing together with people like Becky Smallwood to encourage that is huge. We work with Every Mind at Work to promote mental health champions. Colleagues amongst our society will help others. And the work of our Inclusion Allies Network, a load of work going on at the moment to support the Business in the Community Race at Work Charter, but also to look at things we're doing to support Pride. So a lot of things going on there. Colleague turnover, 25%. This is voluntary colleague turnover, colleagues who've chosen to leave us, and that's down from 31% at the start of the year. So you're always going to get some churn, but I guess it's a figure we really ought to, and the board do, keep a real eye on. And then you look at overall colleague satisfaction, and that satisfaction measure probably is a big one to concentrate on. How satisfied are colleagues overall to work in the society? And you can see the figures there. That's pleasing and remains stable. So when we come on to customer metrics, if you think about customer satisfaction, divorce it slightly from members, these are about people who are actually trading with us in the business. And the measure we've got there, the numbers we've got there, are per 100,000 transactions. So at face value, you look and say, well, it's gone down from 65 to 60 in terms of compliments. That's gone down from about 38,000 down to about 32,000. Most of that is because we've had an overall lower response rate from our customers, and that ties in again with the lower response rate I talked about earlier from our members. So a lot of work we're now doing with Insight to try and say we've got to get better at that research coming through, that insight coming through from you, our members and our customers, and that's a real area of focus. In terms of the compliments, the big themes that are kicking around on there, which I think are exceptional, it's all about colleague service. It's all about helpfulness. Complaints have gone down, but again, we can't really take too much credit for that because it's the lack of responses again that have come in. But again, the themes that are on there, Generally speaking, around availability, now Phil's mentioned the short-term availability. This is more about the ranges that we have, and clearly with the size stores we have, it's always going to be difficult. We're investing a lot in technology, but we've got to do more on that front, I think. And then overall, you'll see with the customer satisfaction, the measure is still high on there. And then finally, we move on to delivery. It's a figure I know is very important to an awful lot of people in this room. We have a sustainability steering group, which has Nick and Paul from the board on it, amongst others. A real focus there. The saving over 700,000 items of food waste is immense. About 200,000 of that is because of the Olio app that we put in. That's enabling it to be redistributed. But the main thing is making sure you stop it at source. You have the right products in the right store at the right time. Energy projects, saving 6%. I know Phil's going to talk about that. And then the final one is reducing the number of accidents in the workplace. Any accident is too many. The focus that is put on amongst the society is huge. We have a system called WorkJam now to monitor, to review, and to regularly report on it. And I know that's an absolute focus of the board, as well as the executive and management on a day-by-day basis. So there are 12 steering wheel measures. Phil, pass back to you.
Thanks, Pete. So as Peter mentioned, we spent 17 million in capital last year, opening in addition to lots of other investments, but actually 5 new sites. So that's 3 food stores and 2 nurseries, and includes a nursery here at the Warwick HQ. It's quite strange being here on a Saturday morning because it's really quiet. Because my colleagues will know that here during the week, that it's a crescendo of noise, of screaming children, well, screaming in a happy way, when they're climbing trees and climbing the frames. And it's an absolutely wonderful backdrop to this HQ to have one of our own businesses in the garden, in the building as well. So we opened the nursery here as part of a new approach to how you can make use of the space, and it's doing really, really well. We're hoping to open more nurseries in office buildings and complexes going forwards. We also opened our first dual site nurseries at Apley and Telford, where we have a food store and a nursery as part of the same building. And that both those sites have gone really, really well. And I think that's going to be important as we go forward, because developers continually building new housing developments quite often now are saying we're going to build a new housing development, a couple of thousand houses, we're going to have a food store and a nursery. We are the only business in the UK that can do both. No other business can, and that puts us in a really unique position when we're talking to developers, and I'll talk about that in a moment, because we've got a good pipeline now of new sites. We've got 9 confirmed new food stores, 14 in progress. That includes 3 replacement food stores at Shawbury, Leckhampton, Cheltenham and Shrivenham, just outside Swindon, where we have existing stores, but they're not really fit for the long term. And rather than try and exit them, we want to redevelop, put new stores there in the right strategic formats. And so important work to develop new sites in existing locations, as well as stretching out further in terms of our geography. And that's the same in our nursery business, our early years business, where, again, 10 confirmed sites underway, 13 in progress. That includes a brand new nursery, Stratford-on-Avon, Kingsgrove in Wantage, where we've already opened our food store. So that's another one of those dual sites. Our first nursery in Devon, which will open at Cranbrook. And again, as I said, quite a lot of these opportunities around dual sites. If you go back, some time in history, you'll see a lot of the society's growth came from acquisition of going concern businesses. So existing food operators that we acquired, or existing nursery operators that we acquired. Pretty much nearly all of our growth now comes from these brand new buildings that were startups. So they do take longer to build and establish, but of course we're not paying the levels of goodwill to acquire them, because they're our businesses from day one. And so that's a really important strategic part of the growth plan for the society. But we're not just investing in bricks and mortar. Yes, it's important we open new stores, new nurseries, we get out of the stores that aren't performing, but it's also really important that we invest in technology as well. To become more efficient, to be able to provide you better digital services and propositions means a significant investment. And we have been making a lot of investment as a society, and I thought it would be useful just to share with you for a couple of minutes some of those investments we've been making through a quick video.
At Mid-Counties, we're embracing change and using technology to work smarter, making life easier for colleagues and creating better experiences for our members. We're investing in digital solutions that makes membership more accessible, convenient and engaging. Our new member app offers improved reliability and personalised benefits. The Doing Good Together Fund and online portal make supporting local causes simpler than ever. We're simplifying things for colleagues too. WorkJam has digitalised hundreds of paper-based tasks, improving efficiency across our frontline. And with WageStream, colleagues have gained greater financial flexibility and access to well-being tools. In food, tech is helping us run stores more efficiently and responsively. AI-powered planning tools help us get the right products in the right places. Electronic shelf labels allow instant price updates and dynamic pricing strategies. LowConnect's automation is reducing our energy use by remotely managing heating, cooling, and refrigeration. And we're tackling food waste with AI-driven waste control, cutting food waste by identifying products near expiry automatically. We're making travel easier too, with a new booking platform, secure open banking payments, and a holiday self-service system for customers to manage trips and contact agents directly. Our new Travel Money online service also makes it quicker and easier for customers to order their travel currency. In early years, the Family app keeps families connected with real-time updates, photos, and direct messages, making learning more collaborative and transparent. This is just the start. We're installing more solar panels across our sites and introducing new self-checkouts offering a faster, more convenient way to shop. We're also excited to be launching our new member investment portal, making it easier for members to access and manage their share accounts and fixed-term investments. As we modernise our systems, we're excited to keep delivering smarter ways to support colleagues and create more value for members.
There you go. I mean, it's really important that your society invests in technology and we increase the pace of change through technology. So the digital transformation that's going on is at a faster pace than it ever has been before. 1,200 of our colleagues have used that WageStream facility to manage their financing. 60,000 members have now downloaded the new app. So if you haven't yet, I would recommend it to you because there's more and more coming. My friend down here sat in the front row. I'm going to ask him to stand up very quickly. Jacob Isherwood, who's our Chief Information Officer. He deserves a big round of applause because he's delivering all this change at real pace whilst also having to protect us against cyber attacks and all the other things we know about. But he's getting on with it and delivering it. He's doing an absolutely brilliant job, Jacob. Well done. Now, he is just one of our remarkable colleagues, and of course, that is the R in the trust pillar. And in the old days, I would always talk about colleagues first, so forgive me because it doesn't spell trust if I start with R. But of course, colleagues are we can't do what we do without our colleagues, and we very much appreciate them. And this year, for the first time, we held a remarkable colleague event in February. We had an incredible 647 nominations for the 10 awards. It was an outstanding event, and it was really pleasing for me to be there and see the smiles on the faces of colleagues that received the awards and also those that were nominated and truly deserved, and a great occasion. I'm already looking forward to next year's event as well. And our colleagues continue to give absolute effort to their communities. 11,600 hours of volunteering, as Pete said, 79% satisfaction rate. And also, as you can see, the numbers are 564 of our colleagues celebrating long service, totaling 6,655 hours in total, which is an incredible achievement. It's one of the great things about your society is how many of our colleagues have given such long service. It's probably the best part of my job is going out and presenting long service awards. I'll be honest about it. It's not the board meetings. It is going out and presenting long service awards. And actually, Martine Bevan, who's one of those recipients who had achieved 50 years service, it was an absolute pleasure to go and join Martine and celebrate. And she's still working and still going strong, and she's a brilliant example of the wonderful colleagues we have across this organisation. And we want to help them and reward them in their day-to-day. Last year, we gave our colleagues £3.7 million in discounts, and that's a 54% increase on the number in 2023, which was 2.4 million. So we are giving colleagues more reasons to shop with us. We're rewarding them more through those discounts. And we've been recognised by the grocer in the Grocery Aid Award with a gold award for our support for colleagues across a range of areas, not just financial and remuneration areas, but also in terms of support in areas such as mental health, through our Inclusion Allies network, diversity, those types of things. So the Grocery Aid have recognised that with a gold award, which is a fantastic achievement as well. So, from me, I just want to thank all of my colleagues again for supporting the executive team and all of us to get through what is always a challenging year, it seems, and we look forward to working with you again in the year ahead. Now, the next one is you. That is you, the members, uniquely engaged members. And of course, we're owned by our members, as you know, and guided by you in everything we do. Pete mentioned over 200,000 members in the last 2 years. That's 113,000 new members joining us last year. And 17.6% of those members were aged under 30, which is great news for those older members like me, because it's helping to, bring the diversity into our membership. As we stand today, about 9% of our membership are aged below 30, so you can see that increasing number of members joining under the age of 30, being driven by great work by our young member network and our member engagement committee, really helping to drive that awareness and push that forward. But also 22% of our members are aged over 70, a really important group as well. So we will never lose sight of the importance of that group of our members. So we may be trying to reach out to the young members, but we're also making sure we look out for our older members as well. And also, tremendous stat, I think, 40% increase in members getting involved in elections this year. So the democracy is alive and well within your society. That's a really important stat. So 475,000 of you traded with us last year. That's 2/3 of our membership base, which is really encouraging. And actually, when we go back to 2023 at the start, we put out our biggest ever member survey. And the result of that survey was that you informed us that where you really wanted us to improve what we did was in offers and discounts for you, member pricing, benefits up front, not having to wait for 18 months to receive something back from your society. Have it up front when you're trading with us. And you also said community. Those were the top two things. Reward me instantly and reward and support my community. That's why we delivered the member pricing and the unique member offers, and that's why we've delivered the Doing Good Together Fund. Last year in our food stores alone, members enjoyed £7.5 million worth of unique discounts just for members through member pricing and member offers. And that's up from 2.3 million the year before. So a significant increase. And that's what's driven that highest ever number of member participation at 44%. So we think that members are responding to that. They recognise the importance of getting value in their day-to-day, not just in our food business, but across all of our businesses, whether that's in early years, utilities partnerships, or in our travel business as well. And we will be doing more through the course of this year to improve that further. So whilst we're not recommending, the board aren't recommending an individual share of profits, we are expecting to give members more. And it's not just in trading discounts. Members enjoyed over £4 million worth of interest from share accounts and fixed-term investments last year. So those members that are investing in their society are getting really good returns as well. So you can see with the discounts in food, the interest on share accounts, that's over £11 million being returned to members in one way or another throughout the course of the year. And it's also really, really encouraging to see how many of our members get behind some of our campaigns. Campaigning about the things that you care about and that we care about, particularly around crime and the Criminal Justice Act. The Police and Crime Bill, passing through Parliament as a result of the support that our members gave, along with organisations like Usdaw and other cooperative societies, are really, really important. Now, I will share some stats with you. So last year in our food stores, we saw a 2.8% increase in incidents of shoplifting, 2.2% increase in violent incidents, which is not good enough. And I'll be clear about that. And we've invested over £2 million in the last couple of years on safer stores, equipment. Peter mentioned that. But what I will also share with you is that the Association of Convenience Stores reported that last year there was a 23% increase in shoplifting incidents reported to the police across the entire convenience channel. The British Retail Consortium reported a 24% increase in shoplifting across all retail and a 50% increase in incidents involving violence. So whilst ours is up slightly, it is nowhere near up by those sorts of amounts. We do need to do more, and we will do more. But your support for our campaigning on this, getting the police and crime commissioners to support the activity, is really, really important, and we're really grateful for all the support that you have given. The S is for sustainable impact, and we collaborate with communities to make a sustainable difference. Sustainability is not just about energy and energy efficiency, as you know, but obviously the environmental impact is very important. You saw in the film about the solar panels that we've been installing, including on this roof here, in a collaboration with Big Solar Co-operative. We've also been supporting community energy in our joint venture with Octopus, which is now 5 years old, supporting 401 energy projects and supplying a third of all community energy in the UK is supplied through that joint venture. You know, and as energy prices are coming down, it's a good time to fix. So if you've not got that community energy tariff, it's a really good time to look at it. It's doing good for your communities through supporting these projects, but also it's a good time to fix the price as well. Pete mentioned tackling food waste, and a reduction in food waste to 25%, a really important measure. He also mentioned Olio, which is the online food distribution app. We've distributed last year 129,000 items of food through the app, which otherwise would have gone through into our anaerobic digestion. So really important that we can redistribute that food through that way. And that's 700,000 items being prevented overall from going to waste. And then in energy efficiency, investing £9 million in the last 3 years. And you saw that in the film, whether that's in new technologies in refrigeration, monitoring, LED lighting, but really embracing that technology. That's reduced our energy usage last year by 6% on a like-for-like basis. That's a £2 million reduction, or 2.1 million kilowatts of energy, which I understand is 700,000 boiling kettles. And that is a lot of tea. Okay, so, you know, really big investment to reduce energy and to really improve our environmental impact. And again, great support by our colleagues. Their behaviours in doing it, they really want to help do this. And so making sure they're supporting all those initiatives in stores, in nurseries, in travel branches is really important. We also run a travel business, and how does that square with a sustainable impact and sustainability? And so we are very keen, particularly through our Co-op Holidays proposition, to continue to develop new ways of making a sustainable impact. A couple of examples. We launched a partnership with Byway. Byway are a flight-free travel company, send people all over Europe and North Africa via train, wonderful destinations and wonderful journeys. We're delighted to be partnering with them. Also with G Adventures send people all over the world, but they have what's called a ripple score. In other words, every £1 you invest as a holidaymaker travelling with G Adventures is calculated to how much of it is staying in that local community. So if you're ever worried that the money is not being kept in the community which you're visiting, you can see it on the score. So transparency is a really important part of that sustainable impact. We now have over 300 destinations in our Co-op Holidays portfolio. We intend to increase those over the coming years, and a lot of that will be focused on these sustainable opportunities for travellers. And we also mentioned the launch of the Doing Good Together Fund and the portable that's enabled that, as it was launched back in September. Already distributed over £130,000 to 476 causes. I'm not going to say any more on this because I know that Imogen and Andrew are covering this on the Member Engagement Committee video that you're going to see in a bit, so I'm not going to steal their thunder. But a really good, successful launch of that last year. And the final T is for thought-leading pioneers. You know, the Co-operative are pioneers, as you know, and this society, and way before my time, has always been inventive, entrepreneurial, and pioneering in lots of many ways. But we want to cover a couple of areas off in this respect. So back at the 2022 AGM, we made a pledge to support the creation of 50 new co-ops in 5 years. We're well on our way to that, having now created 31 new co-ops in support and conjunction with the Plunkett Foundation and Cooperative Futures. One of those new cooperatives is the Bright Future Cooperative. This is a cooperative set up by us and a number of other retailers to help victims of modern slavery into safe work environments. And since its inception, it has already placed over 90 people out of modern slavery into safe workplaces, which is a tremendous achievement. We also celebrated last year 30 years of fair trade, and we received an 87% score from Business in the Community. Now, this is the business monitor that monitors businesses for their support for communities. That's up from 81% the year before and is way above the average of all companies that are in that tracker, which is 47%. We're in the top 5 of companies in that tracker, and that really does reflect the tremendous work that's done by our colleagues and you, our members, throughout our communities as well. We celebrated 10 years of the fair tax mark. We were one of the first organisations to achieve that. So again, important, we pay our taxes, we operate fairly, and we will always continue to do that as a cooperative. And one that's probably quite close to my heart, the Fairer Future programme. This was launched in 2023 in Walsall Town Centre. This was aimed at helping young people aged 18 to 30 that were facing real barriers into work, whether it was anxieties, whether it was lack of confidence, whether they'd been in prison, they may be young parents, young mothers, single parents, helping them into work. The vast majority of them have never had a job before. So through those programmes, we have now helped over 50 young people into employment, many of them with us, but it's in permanent employment. So a tremendous change to their lives and the lives of their families as well. And that programme was quite rightly recognised last year at the People in Retail Awards as the winner of the Community Engagement Programme of the Year, and it was up against some really big organisations. So really, really important accolade for the team at Walsall Town Centre and everyone within this organisation that's been involved in supporting it, and our wonderful partners at Miss Macaroon as well. And I was also delighted to be invited by the Chief Executive of the Co-operative Group, Shireen Curry-Hack, to join the Royal Foundation work for the Centre for Early Childhood. So Shireen was on the steering group for that, invited by Her Royal Highness the Prince of Wales, and she reached out to us because we run an early years business. And I think that's a change in perhaps the partnership between us and the Co-operative Group that we've seen since Shireen has been the Chief Executive. And I was delighted to get involved with some of my colleagues to support that process, attending the workshops, contributing to the report that was produced. Our businesses featured in that report, and really working to help people understand the importance of early years education and the impact it has on children's lives, but also as they grow into adulthood. So really great work, and we're at the centre of that work and supporting the objectives of it. So I think a really important area for you to be aware of, and we'll continue to support that throughout the course of the year ahead and beyond. And as Pete mentioned, this is the International Year of Cooperation 2025 as designated by the United Nations. Last year we celebrated 180 years of cooperation since those Rochdale pioneers filmed the first cooperative. You can see the photo probably on your bottom left. My colleague over there, he's not one of the original founders of the Rochdale pioneers. But he was there because he, along with 4 other cooperative societies on behalf of us, founded the Fund for International Co-op Development. Now, this is a fund to help overseas communities, through disasters where communities need aid. This is more important than ever because, as you know, many governments, including our own, are cutting back on international aid as a result of having to put money into other areas. So really important that co-op step forward and play a role in supporting international co-op development, and we're delighted to be involved in that from the start, and we're fully committed to supporting it throughout. And this year, with the International Year of Cooperation, really important. Congress is being held in Rochdale this year in July. We'll all be there. It's going to be a great event. The International Cooperative Alliance are holding their meeting there as well. So a real celebration of cooperation. And we're also one of 50 cooperatives. I am, as the CEO, amongst 50 other CEOs, represented in what's called the CM50. So this is a cooperative and mutuals, 50 CEOs from across the world who are getting together to produce a declaration to the United Nations Social Development Summit in Doha in November as part of that call on governments to promote cooperatives, to help cooperatives to thrive, as our own government have pledged to do. And so we're working internationally to do that as well. And so a great year of celebration in terms of international cooperation that I'm sure you'll all get join in as members. And it's also a year of celebration because in September this year, Mid-County Society, your society, will be 20 years old, following the formation of the Oxford, Swindon and Gloucester and West Midlands societies back in 2005 to create the Mid-Counties Cooperative. So we're going to be putting on a lot of events in September to celebrate with you as members. We will be providing you some even greater offers and discounts and opportunities to trade with us in September to celebrate that 20th anniversary, and we will also be celebrating with our colleagues. And I don't want to give away too much right now because we will be announcing quite a bit in the coming weeks and months as we lead up to that 20th anniversary. But one of the things we felt it was appropriate to give all our hard-working colleagues an extra day's holiday this year, a sort of bank holiday for our 20th anniversary. So every one of our colleagues in the organisation, well, most of them anyway, will be getting an extra day's holiday this year in recognition for all their efforts and hard work and to celebrate our 20th anniversary. So thank you for listening. I hope you found that informative. Of course, we'll be here to answer questions that you may have on this or anything else going forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Phil, Peter and Pete. You've covered a lot of ground. As you can see, it's been a pretty action-packed year. I hope you've all found that information helpful. There's a chance for questions later on. We're now going to move on to our Member Engagement Committee. I believe we have some members in the audience of that committee. Could you stand up if you are here? Great, thank you very much. We're going to now look at a video which is going to describe the work of that committee.
Hi everyone, my name is Imogen Head and I'm the Chair of the Member Engagement Committee.
Hello, and I'm Andrew Robinson. I am the Vice Chair of the Member Engagement Committee. The committee is a formal part of the governance structure of the Society. It's made up of members directly elected by you yourselves as members, and it reports directly to the board of the Society. Formally, our role is to influence and review the member engagement strategy of the Society. And as part of that, the board regularly and frequently consults us on matters relating to engagement with the Society's members. Also, a number of us have a direct role in approving grants given under the Doing Good Together Fund, and I will say more about that later.
Thank you, Andrew. It's been our pleasure over the last year to represent you, our members, and ensure that your views and voices are always present in the room. In the last year, as a committee, we've led and been involved in a number of different projects, including the Share the Profits transformation, the Young Membership Proposal, the Member Engagement Activities Programme. We've also provided feedback and made proposals to the board regarding the AGM and half-year meeting, and we've also been very deeply involved in the community proposition. Across the last year, there are over 1,400 members directly engaged with us through 28 different member engagement activities. These included 11 local events, 15 co-op conversations, and the 2024 AGM and Fairer Living Festival. We have a clear member engagement strategy in place and it's been agreed by the board. Using member feedback, we've developed a clear member engagement strategy that brings to life our purpose, promotes the cooperative business model, democratic participation, and highlights what co-ops do and how we're doing good together. It provides members with access to a range of different events, including virtual and in-person workshops, webinars, social networks and gatherings, and podcasts. At our most recent meeting with the board in October 24, we spent time looking at ways we might develop our strategies and ways of working to maximise involvement of members. Many of these ideas and suggestions have been fed into and influence future activities and plans.
I mentioned earlier the Doing Good Together Fund. From 11th of September 2024 to the 31st of March 2025, 355 grant applications have been approved, totalling almost £100,000. We wanted you to hear direct from some organisations who've received grants about what it has meant for them. How will you use the grant that you've been given, which I believe is £600?
What we'll do with the money, we will use it towards equipment. So that will be balls, tag belts, all other equipment as well. And more importantly, all the coaches we've got are trained to a professional level in regards to tag coaches, touch courses and so on. So the money will actually go towards the coaches having the right ability to be able to train the children properly.
Thank you. Could you tell us what impact the grant will make both on what you do and on Knighton generally?
It will have a huge positive impact, not just for the children, but for the coaches and everything and the local community as well. Very few things in the local area where children can come, play sport regularly. We train every Thursday, and on the backside of that, that will mean that the children will have something to do in the local area.
Could you give a bit more detail about the grant you've been given and how you've used it?
Yes, so we've been given £500, and that's basically funding what we call our Sydney Warm and Well, we call it, which is a warm hub, which is a kind of cost of living hub for people who are struggling with the cost of living. Gives them an opportunity to come into the centre and to have lunch free of charge with other people in a similar situation.
But what other impact has it made? Have you seen any difference with the people who've come in?
Yeah, we spoke to people actually just a couple of weeks ago to ask them. People come back every week, so they obviously enjoy it. So we spoke to them, and some of the feedback that we got was quite made me feel quite emotional actually.
I couldn't do without them here. I actually do befriending stuff for them, and I'm going to start some level 2 courses, counselling and other things, and that's because here have brought me to do things and help other people, which is what I'm here for.
The more you come here, the more friendship are built. And I've met new people time and time, and friendships have been built. So I've got to know a lot of people.
and it gives me a great day, and I come away in a positive frame, and it does help me.
It's really great to see how we as members of the society can contribute to doing good together in our communities in this way. And the fund is really easy to access and quick to access. If you know, or if you know of any other members who know of any organisation or good cause who would benefit from a grant, do make an application. The application form is quick and easy to access and it only takes a few minutes to complete. And you've seen what a difference a grant can make.
I'm really looking forward to the year ahead, and we have further time planned to focus on how we can maximise member involvement, including supporting volunteering or facilitating doing good in our communities, so look out for more information on that. Furthermore, I'd really encourage any member to think about standing for the Member Engagement Committee. I personally feel it's really worthwhile and rewarding, knowing that we're putting something back into the society which we all own. You can find more details on this on our website, or feel free to reach out to another member of the committee. And finally, I'd like to thank all those members whose continued support for our cooperative, whether that be through shopping or taking part in a survey, making grant nominations or voting. You're really helping to make our cooperative the best it can be.
Right, I'd just like to add my thanks to the committee members for their work throughout the year. They've got a big role in helping us to make membership meaningful for you. It's a key task if we're to thrive as a cooperative with membership right at its heart. We now come to some of the more formal parts of the meeting. We've got various minutes to approve. We'll be asking you to adopt the annual report and accounts and to reappoint our auditors. We have some distributions to propose and the remuneration report to consider. I'll then hand over to Edward to present the special meeting rule change. Then there'll be an opportunity for questions, followed by voting on all these formal items in one go at the end of the meeting. So first of all, to the minutes. We have the minutes from last year's AGM to approve. Hopefully you'll have seen these on the websites. For those of you with member packs, the copies are on pink paper. For those of you online, you'll find them in the Documents tab. We've also provided for your information the draft minutes from the half year, as no doubt some of you will have been to this. These are on the blue paper for those of you with packs. We'll be seeking approval for these minutes at the half-year meeting in the autumn. If anyone has any matters arising from the minutes that they wish to raise, could I ask you to do that in the question and answer session, or if you're online, do it in the chat. We'll take your question in the Q&A session, sir. Thank you.
No, that's before the approval.
It's before the approval, before you vote. You will get a chance. Thank you. Right. We now have the annual report and accounts, which when we come to voting, we'll be asking you to adopt. We've heard a lot from Phil earlier in the meeting, but if you've got any questions or you need to ask something on the detail from the document, then again, please raise this in the question and answer session later in the meeting. With regard to the reappointment of auditors, we'll be asking you to approve the reappointment of our auditors BDO for the year ahead. And 2 members of the BDO team have joined the meeting online to cover any audit-related questions you may wish to raise. This then brings us on to our next formal item, the approval of distributions. Peter Kelly, our Chief Financial Officer, will present the details to you.
Thank you, Irene. It's my pleasure to present the board's recommended distributions for member approval. I will run through the details shortly, but just to reiterate what Irene just said there is an opportunity to ask questions later prior to the voting on the proposal. And as members are asked to vote on this a bit later in the meeting, you'll forgive me if I read through a script because I want to make sure I cover everything properly and fully. So there are 5 elements of the distributions that members need to approve, and they're shown on this slide. First, membership development is the support provided to develop membership and to allow members to effectively engage with the society. Second is our funding and support of communities and young people. Third is to support promotion of the cooperative model. Fourth is in support of the cooperative party, both locally and nationally. And fifth is the community share of profits, the payment proposed in favour of the Doing Good Together Fund, which we launched last September. You'll recall from Phil's presentation that the Society is not proposing a personal share of profits this year, and it's perhaps also worth noting that remaining distributions have been subject to review and the sums proposed for elements are lower than last year. I'll now talk through each element in turn. So first, membership development. Well, membership development covers all aspects of membership engagement, recruitment and communication, including the production and distribution of membership materials, the hosting of online, streaming and physical events, including this event today. The Member Engagement Committee plays a full part in monitoring and reviewing these activities on behalf of the board and the members. The proposed distribution expenditure for the year ahead is £998,000, and this is a reduction of about £50,000 against last year, achieved through running cost efficiencies. Management do not consider this cost reduction will adversely affect member experience, and therefore the proposal is £998,000. In terms of young cooperators and community support, this facilitates all our work in coordinating volunteer support for our regional communities, helps to coordinate our work with over 100 charities and administers the Doing Good Together Fund, as well as all the various other grants we make. A number of our partners who we support in this way have joined us online today. It also provides administrative and operational costs to help support our Young Cooperators network, encouraging young members to engage with your society and develop tomorrow's cooperators. The proposed distribution expenditure for the year ahead is £284,000, although with unused amounts available from last year, the requested approval is for £261,000. In terms of cooperative development, please note the specific organisations to whom we provide financial support. First is Co-ops UK. This is the apex body that promotes cooperation within the UK. The second is International Co-ops Alliance, or the ICA, and this is a worldwide body for co-ops who represent organisations through 110 countries, effectively giving a voice to over 1 billion members across the world. Third is the Co-ops Employers Association, or the CEA, and this is part of Co-ops UK and is advising cooperatives across the UK on HR issues, including legislative changes. Any remaining balance will be utilised at the discretion of your board. The proposal for distribution in this area is £208,000. Make sure we're on the right slide. There we go. And then slide 6, sorry, this is the Co-op Party. So over previous years, we've given support to the Co-op Party nationally to the tune of around about £33,000 and locally to Co-op councils in Oxford, Swindon, Gloucester and Central Midlands to the tune of about £12,000. And we're proposing the same amount for this year for those groups as they continue their excellent work in aims and campaigns aligned to mid-counties and the wider cooperative movement. The amount shown on the slide is lower in total than last year, reflecting the dissolution of the Society's campaigns fund during the year. The board therefore recommends a distribution of £45,000 for this element. Community share of profits. You've heard the MEC chair and vice chair actually about the success of the Doing Good Together Fund, which we launched in last September. As a reminder, the first 1,000 points that a member earns trading with the Society is awarded to the sites where members have traded and will be distributed in grants to local community organisations. Clearly the board recognised that the recommendation is to pay a community share of profits, even though there is not a proposal to pay a personal share of profits. This is in recognition of the fact that members can, of course, gain a greater and more immediate personal reward through exclusive member discounts when shopping with us, while at the same time preserving a way to deliver a community reward. And this is a difficult balance, and the board have recommended a reduction in the community award of 0.1 pence per point from last year's 0.25 pence per point. You'll see on the slide here that this comes to a total for your approval of £239,000. So in summary, please note that distributions you'll be shortly asked to approve, and this is for a total of £1.75 million. Thank you, and I'll hand back to your chair.
Thank you. We now come to the Society's remuneration report. as part of good governance, it's appropriate that members have the opportunity to endorse the Society's remuneration report, which you can find in the annual report and accounts on pages 60 to 74. The report covers the remuneration policies and practices for the Society's directors and its executive management team. Now, Heather Richardson is going to make a few remarks on behalf of Ellie Boyle, Chair of the Remuneration Committee, who's unable to be with us here today. So I'll hand over to her.
Thank you, Irene, and good morning, members. As Irene said, I've got just a few words to introduce the remuneration report to you all. First of all, to note that the report is very detailed. It follows the best practice disclosure requirements set out by government. We think that's the right approach, to be open and transparent as possible on what we know can be a sensitive topic. Secondly, it's probably simplest to describe the role of the Remuneration Committee as making sure that the Society's remuneration policy for the executive is fair and equitable in light of our cooperative values and principles, and that's the committee's key task. But the committee also has a broader high-level oversight role on the reward strategy for all colleagues, of which we've heard some of the detail of earlier today. Then on executive pay, it is helpful if I quickly summarise how the policy translates into practice. In essence, we pay salaries around the median level, but the bonus and other incentive arrangements for members on the executive are significantly less than those found amongst our competitors. So overall, the total pay they receive is also significantly less. You'll see this summarised on the slide, and you'll find the detail in the report itself. Thank you, members. There'll be opportunity for questions later on. For now, back to you, Irene. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Heather. Now we come to our special meeting, which is about a rule change. This is to allow for the appointment of an independent professional non-executive director position onto the board. There's a paper on this in your meeting pack, which you may have had the opportunity to see and to read. But for those who haven't, I'm going to hand over to Edward Parker, who will run through the paper briefly to explain to members about the proposal. Thank you, Edward.
Where do we get these packs from? Can we have them? I mean, we can't take votes on them without being able to see what we're voting on.
Thank you.
I don't know where they've come from. Thanks very much. But
Yes, I'm sorry if you were not given one when you arrived. Thank you.
thanks very much.
We okay? Yeah, great. Well, good morning, members. Thank you, Chair. Just as Irene said, we're in a special meeting now because we have a proposed rule change which the board wishes to put to you for approval. Not everyone, clearly, has been able to read the paper, so I am actually just going to read through. Apologies, more reading. It doesn't take long, so that everyone's brought up to speed, everyone can ask questions, and then before we come to the votes, question and answer session's coming next. So here we go. It doesn't take long, but it's important everybody is aware, fully aware of what the rule change is proposed. So, the board has been reviewing elements of its governance arrangements over the last few months and wishes to propose the following rule change. If approved, the change would align the Society with best governance practice in the cooperative sector in this particular area. As may well be known, the board is made up of 16 directors who have all been elected by the Society's members. This accords well with the formal principles on which cooperatives are founded, in particular, the second principle, democratic member control. For some years now, the Cooperative Governance Code, published by Cooperatives UK, has allowed for the appointment, rather than election, of independent non-executive directors. The thinking is that a cooperative board could be strengthened and so undertake its role more effectively if it was able to appoint an individual or individuals, should it be felt needed, with particular skill sets or different experiences to the elected directors on the board. This to help ensure that the board can fulfil its role properly and to act to its full potential. To accompany this provision, Cooperatives UK has also introduced standard wording for cooperative societies which can be adopted into their rules to allow for such appointments. It is proposed to adopt all the key points from the standard wording into the society's rules as safeguards are included to take account of cooperative principles. For example, appointed directors should have their appointment ratified by members each year, should be reviewed every 12 months by the board, etc., etc. Most cooperatives similar to the Society have adopted such a rule into their rule books, and most have appointed at least one independent non-executive director as a result, to complement the strengths of their member-elected directors. The Society's board has always been cautious about adopting this rule, given the second cooperative principle of member democratic control. However, and the slide here really sort of summarises the nub of the argument, I think, recognising that the Society operates in an increasingly complex and challenging environment,
And conscious of the best governance recommendations from Cooperatives UK, the board believes it is now appropriate to make provision in the Society's rules to allow for the appointment of one independent non-executive director. This would allow the board, should it believe it necessary, to appoint an individual to the board if it was felt this would enhance performance and allow it to more effectively fulfil its responsibilities and obligations. So that's the nub of it. Then we've got on the following slide the actual rule change itself. This is an addition to Rule 10.1. As mentioned, it does track the standard wording set out by Cooperatives UK. So you've got to be a member of the society if you're going to be an independent non-executive director appointed by the board. You can serve for fixed periods determined by the board. It's subject to review at least every 12 months. You can't serve for more than 9 years. You can be removed by resolution of the board. Can't be an employee or former employee. Can't serve as president or vice president. Your remuneration will be fixed by the board from time to time. And importantly, members must ratify your appointment at each annual general meeting. And then there's just some couple of technical points at the end that we won't, I think for the sake of practicalities, insist that before your appointment you've got the required member spend, which is £500 for directors, and you don't have to have been a member for a year before you can serve on the board. So that's the rule change. Hopefully that explanation is fine. We're actually going to move to the Q&A session now, so there's a chance for people to ask questions on this before we come to the vote.
Thank you. Right. We've now got the chance for questions on everything so far and any other matters you wish to raise. As a reminder, you can raise any individual queries relating to your account or similar by speaking to one of the board executive team after the formal AGM, or for those online via the usual online channels. We'll answer as many questions as we have time for. I'm going to start by taking a couple of questions from members in the room, and then we'll move to some questions online. It would help if you could keep your questions to the point, as it means we'll be able to get through more. And I'm going to start by asking the gentleman who wished to raise something on matters arising. So if you're selected to ask a question and you're in the room, could you stand up and introduce yourself, please, once you've got the mic?
On a point of order, Chair.
Yes.
We seem to have an opportunity to amend the proposed rule.
It's not in the formal agenda, but I'm happy to take a proposal under questions.
Oh, good morning. Leslie Freitag. Page 6 of the pink sheet.
Yes, your name is?
I just said Leslie Freitag.
Thank you.
Page 6, the question on the phone co-op. I raised that last year. It was whether you couldn't, if you used the phone co-ops, if you hold a co-op phone account, you can't give money to the charities that are frequently on the television in the middle of the afternoon when I'm watching. Apparently, it's not possible. That was the question raised. Somebody afterwards accosted me with, I think he had a beard, and said, I'm the executive responsible. It's a big problem. The provider, which is EE, don't like it. And I said, well, how about getting onto some of the beneficiaries, the charities that benefit, put pressure on EE? And he said, you'll be hearing from me. I'm still waiting.
Thank you. Can I ask Pete Westall to answer that?
Yeah, I'll tell you that, Leslie, it's probably appropriate for me to say, I know we discussed it. I will take a personal action after this meeting to pick up with Jacob, pick up with Sarah Dunham, Stuart, etc., and we will get back to you within the week on what we're doing. I suspect the position hasn't changed, but we should have got back to you, and I'll do that for you.
Yeah, would you like to introduce yourself, Patrick?
Great. I'd like to move an amendment to the proposed rule change to the effect that it would be after the first sentence of the amended part of the underlined section of the resolution, the rule, the board may, in exceptional circumstances, co-opt an independent external director. So it would read, the board may, in exceptional circumstances, co-opt an independent external director to the board in addition to the number of directors specified in these rules. And secondly, that the board be informed and it be formally minuted the reasons for the justification for incurring exceptional circumstances. I'm not asking that members be informed because I understand that there's maybe a question of outside parties being involved, but I think the board ought to minute the particular exceptional circumstances which are believed to justify the appointment of an external director, which is a very large change in the governance of our society. We've always been, I should say I was a director for over 30 years of the society, we've always been very, very proud of the fact that any member has the right to stand and be elected by the members as a whole. And I understand in particular circumstances it may be necessary to do this, but I think that should be the basis on which it's done. And as I say, there should be a minute defining for the board, so that the board has to agree that the circumstances fit within the criteria and are exceptional. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Patrick. Edward, you've noted that. Yeah. Obviously, this would be a board appointment, but we take your point about the minuting, because it is exceptional circumstances, but those could easily arise given what's happened this year with the digital experience, and the financial world becomes ever more complicated. So as a society, we have been out of line, and it is part of a recommendation from Co-ops UK as part of good governance. So we're keen to come in line, but give ourselves the facility should we need to do. Thank you. I'm now going to move us on to a question online, which again is going to be for Edward. It's from Marlene Corby. I don't know if she's available to ask her question directly. No? Okay, I'll read it out for you, Marlene. Again, on the special meeting, the explanatory notes, page 3, please clarify the exemption to the rules 10/10A, 10B. Does this mean the co-opted director does or does not need to comply? If exemption from complying, what is the justification for this?
So they don't need to comply with rules 10A and 10B. So rule 10A says that you have to have been a member for a year before you're able to stand for the board. Now the board may decide that, well, we need a director with particular skill sets, and that so happens that someone who we think is suitable for the role hasn't been a member for a year, but we need to appoint them now. So that's the reason for that, rather than wait a year. And then rule 10B says you need to qualifying spend. So you need to have spent with the society on its goods or services £500 in the year before you become a member of the board. So same kind of reason that you don't need to, we might find someone who's very suitable for the role, hasn't been a member of the society, hasn't spent in the society's stores or with its travel business or whatever the necessary spend. So we're discounting those, saying, well, that's not going to debar you from becoming an appointed director. Hopefully that's clear.
Thank you very much, Edward. Going to move on now to a question on community power. So I'm going to alert Pete Westall for that. And it's from Luke Blakey. Can we hear how the Society plans to promote its community power tariff nationally, particularly to community groups, charities, and the many independent churches? What quantum of promotion of our community-generated supply can be sustainably afforded under the partnership? Is there a budget?
That's a good question. Thanks, Luke. So let's take it in two parts. First and foremost, members will be aware that we offer a consumer offering. So we don't offer something which is business to business. That's not part of a thing we've done for energy from day one. There's good reasons for that. But from a consumer point of view, I think it's really important for members to know. Phil mentioned earlier that Unity deal with a third of the community energy in the UK. That's enough to power something like 65,000, 70,000 homes. We've got nowhere near that at the moment of customers that have signed up for a community power Octopus Co-op energy tariff. So the room is there, Luke, absolutely to really drive this home. I happen to think that community energy, the GB energy, the government policy, etc., all of that is becoming closer, not just to members' hearts, but people's hearts in the UK, and absolutely we'll be taking that as a focal point for this year. How can we work, GB Energy, government policy, but particularly working with our partners at Octopus and Unity to drive community energy and take up of the co-op community power tariff?
Thank you very much, Pete.
Maybe I'll just add a bit to that as well. In terms of partnerships to develop the community energy tariff and proposition, we've recently signed a partnership with Central Co-op, where they will now be promoting
our community energy tariff to their members. We'll be promoting the funeral services to our members. So we are starting to work now formally with other co-ops to promote these services, which is something I know you've always said we should do. We had to get the sort of right platforms in place and the right relationships in place. We're now doing that. We've done that with Central. They are the largest independent co-op, and so it was good to start there. And also, my colleague down there is working with another organisation, a partnership organisation, not a co-op, but a partnership organisation, who are also interested in entering into these sort of reciprocal arrangements with us. So I think it's something we should have been doing some time ago. We're now getting after that and really pushing that, so we'll report back on that next year.
Thank you. Are there any more questions from in the room? I'm going to go to the lady in the middle. If you could stand up and introduce yourself. The mic is coming.
Thank you. Janet Warren. And it's a question absolutely on membership, society, and who we are. We are a society. I received papers online, I think on Thursday, it might have been a day or two earlier. There was a lot to read, 121 pages, with a lot of colour presentation, which appeared to be designed for printing. I haven't received a printed copy. I haven't seen any here. On page 120, it said, "We are happy to provide publications in alternative formats." But I had to plough through 120 pages to be told that. I feel that wasn't very member-friendly. We've arrived today. We're a small number. It would have taken 3 sheets of A4 printed labels to give us all a name, and that hasn't been done. I feel that would have gone a long way to supporting community cohesion. And if we are to cooperate, I do think we need to know who we're cooperating with. That echoed, thank you. I won't go on Julie. Just one more point, though, and that is on the idea of our, as members, receiving benefits through the member benefits in store. That is not done through a sense of self-determination. We are being told what we can have our benefit, in what form we can receive our benefits. We might get a twofer or a bog off or something on items we never buy. And I do feel this is the wrong road to be going down.
Thank you very much. I'm going to ask Phil to respond.
I'll respond to your second part, actually, and I'll ask my colleague Pete to respond to the first part in terms of the publication of materials, etc. But on the first part, I mean, it's good feedback, Jen. I appreciate that. And I think we, as I said, we want to continue to provide more and more benefits to members, and so it's really important that we do understand where you think we're not providing at the moment. And we obviously have introduced member pricing on things such as milk, because we recognise that's a sort of staple item. So we are trying to ensure that we're putting member pricing onto staple items, so benefits there. I know this is not all of our stores, but in our larger stores, members over 60 enjoy 10% off on a Tuesday on anything. So they've got the flexibility to decide how they use that benefit. And as we've developed this technology to be more sophisticated, and we've just upgraded the technology, we can start to do a lot more things. So we can, we will be introducing through the app personal choice for members. So if you want to get a discount on a certain item, you can make that choice through the app going forwards. And so there's a lot to come. So we really do appreciate the feedback, because the more we can listen and understand those opportunities, the more my friend here in our IT function can deliver on that. And one of the other things that we've just changed, and it was just changed this week, is that our stores can also now accept member cards from the Co-operative Group, Central Co-op, and the other larger co-op societies when their members are shopping in our stores, because we feel that's Principle 6. Cooperation amongst cooperatives is about making sure that no one's left out here. So thank you for that feedback. But I will ask Pete to just cover the
That's
other
fine.
piece.
From a member's perspective, Janet has been holding me and other elected members and executive feet to the fire for the last 30 years. So delighted to see it, Janet. And yes, we could do better in terms of name badges here. If I'm totally honest, the numbers of people registering, the number of people turning up, it changes. And we would have reduced quite a lot of name badges that wouldn't have been used today, but that's not a point. We'll take that. From a publication point of view, I actually thought we did okay, but every feedback, and we'll pick up afterwards what we could do better. Our entire annual report and accounts went live on the website over a week ago, which I think gave members enough detail to read, etc. We have been advertising in stores. Let me pick up if I can, and we'll do it as part of the insight thing as well, Phil and Irene. we will look at how we can do this better, because there's clearly a balance. We don't want to produce copious amounts of paper. It's one of the things we talk around in terms of energy efficiency, but equally we've got to allow members the opportunity to challenge appropriately. So apologies that we haven't done quite enough. We'll pick up, but we'll try and do better in the future.
Thank you. I'm going to take a question online, which is on remuneration, so I'm going to alert Heather to this, and it's from Carol Minter. The question is, Chief Exec pay last year was 26 times that of the lowest paid member. This year it's 27 times. Could you explain why, and will this trend continue? And just for those of you who are looking on paper, it's on page 65. If I can hand over to Heather to comment on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, it is all in the remuneration report. But yeah, the increase that's been given is in line with the 1% additional. So all colleagues, including the executive, get the 1% additional, and that has actually marginally increased that gap. The Remuneration Committee does review that and has had some large discussions around that and actually looking at it. And we are also taking note in future years to also think about how can we actually look at our overall policies and remuneration to see if we need to actually do anything different going forward. And we will, of course, keep members updated with regards to that.
Thank you very much, Heather. Right, I'd like to take another question from the room. Gentleman at the back.
Danny Douglas. My question is, our society have a great history in supporting innovative new cooperative solutions, and one of those was our investment in Co-op Rail. I've just been recently appointed Strategy Director of Co-op Rail, and my question to the board is, will you receive and examine our consultation proposal to the government's rail bill that's going through Parliament, because we are very anxious and very keen to try and have a cooperative rail solution in the UK, and this society has invested in that solution, but we do think the bill could go a slightly better way to enable cooperative solutions and also improve accessibility to our communities and our members throughout our trading area.
Thank you very much for that. Would you like to comment, Phil?
Yeah, and again, I'll hand over to Pete in a second, because I think one of the things that we, have demonstrated in over many years is the ability and willingness to campaign and to work with organisations, partner organisations, for the right outcomes, whatever that outcome is. But if it meets our values, why wouldn't we want to work with other partner organisations? So I'm delighted you've raised that question. I'm sure Pete will commit us to working with you as necessary.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Danny. I know we spoke about it probably a couple of months ago. I think it is right, actually, from a couple of members of our elected board have worked on this project and perhaps said to the board originally about investing, which is good. I've also been held to account, as we have, by Janet in the past, about national transport and so on and so forth, so it's clearly dear to our heart. Probably more importantly, Danny, I think Phil mentioned in his presentation about thought-leading pioneers. We say as a co-op, it's not just about being in the game, it's not just about winning a game, but it's about changing the game for the communities in which we trade. We've got quite a track record now of we are working with the government on things that matter to our members, including with the support of the wonderful Co-op Party. And Danny, absolutely, we'll look at railways, we'll bring it back to the board, but I would have thought that's a matter which is of interest to members and we should be looking at, so we will do.
And the board is keenly interested in that. Thank you very much, Pete. I'm going back online now, and I think this is probably going to be one for Phil to answer. This is from Katrina Marden. Why are you closing down so many stores within my community area, which is Stourport, Bewdley, Franch Road? Please do not count Arley Kings as a new place to go to. It's an awful place to get to via Stourport Bridge. With so many new builds in Stourport, Bewdley and Kidderminster, has the board neglected to take this into account when closing these stores? After all, you pride yourself on community-led, community-based. Isn't that a contradiction?
Thank you, Katrina. I mean, it is very much a sensitive area. And what I would say firstly is that the board have agreed a geographical territory for us to operate food stalls from, which is in keeping with the Mid-Counties
food proposition and strategy. Obviously, our other businesses, early years and travel, will go further afield by the very nature. They're national businesses, but food is a regional business. So what I would say firstly is there isn't a location within our region that we're not wanting to trade from. Okay? Absolutely isn't. There aren't areas we're saying, let's pull out of there or pull out of this location. What we do, however, and we have done, is we're really clear about what we call our strategic formats. So which format of store meets the long-term requirements of the society, therefore will be successful. And they are our food markets and our convenience stores. And they have a very clear criteria in terms of what makes them strategic. It is the vast majority of our stores. And so we ran the rule over that some years ago. And any stores that don't meet that requirement, where we can't redevelop the site, as I mentioned earlier at Leckhampton, Shawbury, and Shrivenham, where we're redeveloping the sites, but we found alternative sites, then reluctantly, when the leases come up, or if there's another discounter that's looking to get in there, which clearly would render that store non-viable if they opened, we will reluctantly, on occasion, either close that store, sell it to a discounter, and to look to reinvest that money into strategic formats. But there are no locations. You don't want to. I take your point on Arley Kings, but it is in the location. I know it's not a convenient place for members that live in Stourport to go and shop. I fully accept that and understand that, but it does demonstrate that we are investing in that geography. And if you know of sites or locations where there are opportunities, new developments, as I was talking about earlier, we are committed to that geography. And and I appreciate, again, Telford's not in the location, but we are investing in the West Midlands and into Shropshire and those areas, and we'll continue to do so. But that's how the board set the strategy, and that's how we arrive at the decisions in terms of individual sites.
Thank you very much, Phil. Right, back to the room. I'm going to take another one from Patrick. So when you get the mic, so we
I'm
can...
concerned about the format. I mean, I think it's wonderful to be able to have questions, but we are the owners of the society, and we should be able to make statements and to move amendments to resolutions as per the agenda. I think the question of the resolutions should be taken separate from questions and answers and discussion, because constitutionally, I'm required to put forward a proposal for an amendment or to oppose a resolution or support it under a completely different item. That being said, I would like to say that I intend to vote against the vote for our contribution to the Co-op Party. We carried out research some years ago which showed that 8-to-1 membership of the association between the party with the Labour Party made people less likely to vote to shop in our shops. They feel as strongly about that as we do about not shopping in Tesco's, for example. Their wishes should be respected. The Co-op Party carried out research on this, amongst other things. They refused to publish or make available, even to the people who fund them, the results of that require, presumably because the survey was carried out independently and showed the same unpopularity. I think that we should be a political organisation. We should not be a party political organisation. And I would intend to vote against it and urge members to vote against it and to ask the board to look at ways of non-discriminatory ways of support, being engaged in politics, most obviously through enhancing our support for Co-ops UK, who have their own political representation. And can I just end by saying that if a Labour MP is sponsored by a trade union, they will invariably be at the AGM of that trade union, or they'll be sacked. And not a single, I've never seen a Co-op party bother to attend our meeting. And we had someone who was sponsored, who's now a Labour MP, who lived 300 yards from our local Co-op shop. And apart from one occasion when he was specifically invited for a refurbishment of the society, I never once saw him in that shop, and I go in there every day. I think that we need to move on from the old model, which dates back to 1928, when Marxists were controlled, who played a big part in the Labour Party and in the cooperative movement. Move on to make it clear that we are politically engaged, that we want to work with other cooperators, but that we work with cooperators from every political party and not just from a party which currently has the support of about 25% of the population.
Thank you very much, Patrick. I'm going to move back to a question online. Scott Montgomery. Our society has a family of fantastic businesses, all doing good for us, for our communities, and having a positive impact in the world. It's great to see improved member engagement and improvements in some businesses. I'm a little concerned at the loss made for the previous year without taking anything away from a future half-yearly meeting. do you think this is improving in 2025 so far? So I'm going to put that to Peter.
Are you talking about the losses there of the society, the financial losses?
I'm assuming that Scott is referring to losses made for the society.
Yes, well, as I mentioned at the start, the society did make a loss. A couple of those losses were related to non-cash write-downs of assets we had on the balance sheet. As Phil mentioned, there are some headwinds that we are still facing into this year. Talking about 2025, we know that national living wage is increasing by 6.7%. We're in support of those wages increasing, and that's worth about £4.5 million. But national insurance and the lower threshold of national insurance and the rate of national insurance add about another 5 million on top, so over £9.5 million of cost headwinds coming into primarily the food business. Obviously, it's across all businesses, but it primarily affects retail, hospitality, and leisure to a greater extent. As I said, so we are expecting, from a food perspective, that actually we will have some pressure on the profitability next year. Nevertheless, the improvements in that business to counter that from the various initiatives such as technology in store to reduce tasks or make tasks easier, self-checkouts, etc., are going to help that. And the society doesn't just operate in that business. It has 3 other businesses, all of which we will see growth next year. So there certainly will be some headwinds in food in particular, but those other 3 businesses will help to counter that.
Thank you. And Phil, you'd like...
And I think I'll just add that those of you that are sort of keen readers of Co-op News will probably see there's quite a lot of societies this year reporting losses across the movement. Heart of England, Southern Co-op, Chelmsford Star, Central reporting reduction. So I think there's a collective challenge for the Co-op movement in the UK and particularly the retail food co-ops to work through some of this strategic thinking, because we referenced earlier some of the headwinds that we're facing in terms of employment costs. There's new packaging costs coming, there's other legislation elements, there's clearly competitors that are very efficient in terms of the way they operate, perhaps not operating in some cases to our values, but they're very efficient. And so we have to really think about the challenges and how we meet them going forwards collectively as cooperatives, because we're all doing lots of the same thing at the moment. So we've got to think about how we can become more efficient together going forwards. But this isn't just a challenge for Mid-Counties Co-op, it's a challenge for the whole retail movement, and I see that firsthand at discussions at the FRTS board. So I think we do need to do more in terms of thinking about how do we become more effective, because we do pay our tax and we do operate fairly and we do support our communities in a way that perhaps others don't. That means it's not always a level playing field, but that isn't an excuse. We've got to find ways around that in order to make sure that we are successful for the longer term.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to move us on now because we've gone over our allocated time for questions. All right, then, I'll let Vivian.
Yes, so my name's Vivian Woodell. I'm one of the vice presidents of the society. I think it is important that somebody from the board responds to Patrick's intervention on the Co-op Party. I think the Co-op Party has actually worked very hard in recent years to push cooperation up the agenda of the Labour Party, who are now the government. I'll just mention one point in relation to that, which is that they have secured that the Labour Party manifesto, and therefore now the government's policy, is to work to double the size of the cooperative sector. I think that's really important, and I think that's something that we should not undervalue. So I think I would urge members to vote in support of the contribution to the Cooperative Party. They've also worked very hard to promote and support our childcare business by arranging meetings in the House of Commons to raise the profile of that. Pete Westall, I know, talks about that very often. I think this is good value for money, and it is a way of ensuring that cooperation is on the political agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vivian. So you've got a balanced view now. Right, I'm going to move us on because we really must get to the voting. Thank you for your engagement and for taking the trouble to ask the questions. And if you've got any individual queries, you can raise those with board members or get in touch with us afterwards online. We can now move on to the voting on the items we've covered. We've got a quick practice session first to bring everyone up to speed on how the system works. Then we'll move to the formal votes. Just as a reminder, only those who've been a member for at least 6 months are eligible to vote. So a small number of you won't be voting today. And don't forget to check your voting instruction sheet on your chair if you're in the audience here today. For those online, the vote should just pop up. I hope as many of you will take the opportunity to vote as possible, because having a say is a fundamental part of our democratic approach. We don't know how you vote, which is really important, so please don't hold back. And if you have a tech issue with the system, please either raise your hand if you're in the room, or if you're online, get in touch via the messaging tab. So, on with the practice vote. You'll see on your screens, we're asking, have you downloaded our new member app? We've recently updated this app, so we're keen that everyone has the latest version downloaded. So the voting slide is coming up. You simply click your answer. Those in the room using your handset, vote as notified on the handset screen. It's come on now. Yes. And I'll give you a countdown when the vote is going to close.
Mine's not working.
Just giving a bit of extra time for this, Jen. Great. Thank you. The vote is now closed. Well, that went reasonably well. Yeah. So, as you'll see from that little rehearsal, the voting is open for 30 seconds, and I'll let you know when we're closing the vote. Okay, so the first item that we're going to vote on are the minutes. On behalf of the board, I formally propose that the meeting approves the minutes of the 2024 AGM. Again, the same thing. If you're in the room, press your screen. If you're online, just follow the instructions. Vote closing now. Thank you. We can now move to the annual report and accounts. So on behalf of the board, we're asking members to adopt the annual report and accounts for the year ended 2025, that is January 2025. And here's the slide now, hopefully. Yeah, and the vote is going to close to 1 closed. Thank you. Yeah. We now turn to the reappointment of our auditors, BDO. As is standard practice, we need to confirm their appointment for the year ahead. Here's the slide. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, closed. Thank you. We now turn to the distributions. Firstly, we're going to cover membership development, young cooperators, and community support. So, for membership development and young cooperators and community support, I formally propose a distribution of £1,259,000. We can vote now. Here's the slide. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Vote is closed. And the next one is for cooperative development and the co-op party distribution. I formally propose a total distribution of £253,000. We can vote now. Here's...
No, this is the cooperative development one. We split them out. Sorry? This is the cooperative development one, not the party one. We split it out.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sorry,
it should be
worth just clarifying.
Yeah.
Just, Edward, if you could, of exactly what this vote is then for.
I understand the vote's been split out. Yeah, we need to be clear. Yeah, you're right. Can someone just advise? Have we got the separate co-op party vote coming next? Anyone at the back? We
Yes.
have, yeah. So apologies. So this slide should cross out the co-op party bit. So this is purely for the cooperative development section. The co-op party slides, party is next.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Closed. So, as you've just said, Edward, the next one is for the co-op party. Can you remind me the amount?
45.
45,000 for the co-op party. So you should be getting the slide now. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Closed. Thank you. And now I propose for community share of profits a distribution of £239,000. A slide should be appearing. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you. The next vote is on the remuneration report. As members, you have an advisory vote on the report. So could I ask you to cast your vote on it? Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Closed. Thank you. And finally, we're going to ask you to vote for the special meeting rule change, as explained earlier, and containing the amendment that was suggested, Edward.
Well, technically, we should vote on the amendment first and then vote on the rule change. So can we add in another vote? So amendment first, as raised by Patrick. So if we do, and then you're able to add in a second vote to vote on the whole thing. Is that? Can we do that quickly?
If not, we could perhaps do this one twice.
Edward.
Yeah. Well, I think the motion. Well, we do the motion first, the amendment first, and then the...
Okay.
Are we able to do that? Can we do this one twice? If we could do this one twice, then we can explain what we're doing.
Right.
Can it be made absolutely clear to online members what's happening?
Yeah. So for the first vote, we're asking you to support the recommendation that we're able to appoint.
We need to support the amendment that's put forward.
Yeah.
So the amendment that's put forward. So first vote for this one is going to be support. I need to find my page. Here we are. So originally the rule reads the board may co-opt an independent external director to the board, etc., etc., etc. So the proposed amendment was the board may, in exceptional circumstances, co-opt an independent external director. So we're voting on whether we can accept those words, in exceptional circumstances. So that's vote number one, yes or no, and then we'll come to the vote on the substantive thing.
Well, can it be made clear orally that the board will take on board the point about minuting the reasons for the exceptional circumstances?
I'll take that as read. Yeah.
All right. I hope everyone is clear on that.
So if we're able, so this first vote is on the proposed amendment to the motion, so adding in the words in exceptional circumstances.
That should be appearing.
Hopefully that's coming through soon. Team at the back. Oh, there it is. Great.
And the countdown is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, closed. And then we come on to the second vote.
So that's passed. So now we're voting on the rule change as amended. So the board may, in exceptional circumstances, co-opt an independent external director. The rest is the same. Here you are.
And the count is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you. So that's the formal voting over. We now come to any other business, and that relates to anything not covered in the agenda so far. Does anyone have anything they wish to raise? Yeah, we have a lady over there. We're bringing you. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, it's Christine Robinson from Penkridge, Staffordshire. I've got a thank you. About 4 years ago, our largest co-op in the village closed, and we were told, no, you're not getting it. No, you're not getting your post office. It's all going. Well, talking to Phil and emails, the co-op did move to a smaller building, and people in the village said, no, we're not walking those 3-4 minutes. We're not crossing the 449. We're not going to do that. But what happened? We see them now with their little walking aids going across the crossing, going into the co-op. The post office, yes, we've got, and there's a queue every day. There's about maybe 6, 7, 8 people to get into that post office. So thank you. The other one is the investment, and you always say, if it looks too good to be true, it is. And I invested, and thank you. The only thing is the village is expanding. There are at least 1,300, 1,400 houses going up within a mile of the co-op. So put that in your little minutes there somewhere. And I've got one little gripe, which I keep asking in Penkridge. The clearance section is about the height of the skirting board off the floor. You cannot get to it to see what's inside without going on, literally onto your knees. And when I ask the helpful staff in our little co-op, they say, head office. And I say, can't you ask head office? Because you're losing food. It might not be a lot, but you're losing food because it's pushed right to the back and you just can't get down to look at it. But otherwise, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for those kind words, and I really appreciate that the store has gone down well in the village, and the post. I know the post office is very busy, and they do a great team and a great job. And actually, our post office had a good year last year overall. On the gripe, thank you for that. You probably saw on the video, the technology video, where it said we're using this really smart computer-aided design to work out exactly where to put products now. Well, this is sort of, I'm not going to say computer says no, because my colleague over here, Sarah Yates, who's our COO, who runs our food business and has been working tremendously hard the last few weeks to get us back on track with cyber, I'm sure she's going to say, yes, we can move it in Penkridge onto a shelf it's easy to get to. Aren't you, Sarah? You are. Yeah, we're overruling the computer on this one. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Patrick.
I'd just like to thank the board and the management executive for what's been a very, very difficult year. And we've had a very impressive presentation of the initiative that's been used and the energy that's gone into making a success of our society in circumstances which are unique, really. I should just say, having been on the board for many years, there's never been a year when the society hasn't been in danger of falling off a cliff and in crisis, but you've done a really good job over the last year. The second point is that I love the format of this meeting. I think it's wonderful not to be paying £20,000 to some self-employed personality to come and patronise us, and not to have sausage rolls. There's an occasion for sausage rolls and there's an occasion for hearty speeches, but it's not an AGM. And could I just end up by saying that member engagement is what the co-op is about. Up there, that's wonderful. But the previous chief executive used to say, the co-op is not just an organisation which does good things. It's an organisation which is owned and controlled by its members, and there's a deficit on the control side now. And I think that the success of this meeting, hybrid meeting, shows that we should reinstate a reasonable spread of members' meetings. We don't have the whole caboose. Phil and perhaps one other officer, maybe Edward or somebody else, could come there, and if only one person comes and the members are properly informed, or our members will know that actually they can ask questions if they want to. And I will ask you please to do that. It shouldn't cost a lot of money. I'm very aware of the need to keep costs down, but we used to have 130 people, up to 130 people at the Oxford meeting. The people are still living there. There must be people who've got gripes about sausages they want to raise with the chief executive. Please ask, could the board please look at that, how we can begin to reinvigorate the democracy, because this meeting had many good features, but there were problems there which need to be ironed out, and those problems primarily are about the extent to which members can really affect the society and the running of the board. I know I talk too much. I'm very happy to get up on my back legs. I would have been much happier if more people had spoken. Perhaps we can do something to stimulate greater participation, and not just questions to the great and the good to answer, but actually people putting their views forward as to how their society could be improved. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patrick.
Firstly, Patrick, thank you for your kind words and your feedback. And it's all, as you said, it's always been a bumpy ride, but that's the nature of a cooperative. And I was saying earlier, co-ops do business in a way that other organisations don't, and that can sometimes be challenging for them, but it's still the right
thing to do, absolutely. And I think your feedback in terms of the venue, the interaction, the trust pillars, the you in trust is uniquely engaged members. We have to live up to that. I completely accept that. And I think we'll take that feedback. We'll work as a team. How can we improve that engagement? Because we are committed to it. I mean, the fact that 44% of our transactions are now with members, the highest ever, that's an opportunity to engage, isn't it? Like never before. So we should take that. But thank you. Okay.
Thank you. And we have a gentleman at the back.
Thank you. Same name as before. Can I reiterate about the investments? I actually saw the interest rate and I spoke to Edward and I said, are you sure? And he said, oh, it's cheaper to borrow from you and give you an interest than it is from other sources. It was exceptionally good. It's gone down a bit now, the interest, but the funny thing is I'm on the board of the Co-op Bank's Customer Union and I'd like to pass this thing on if you agree now. When I needed to transfer the money, I had to ring up my bank. I hate online stuff, but the Co-op Bank allows you. And I said, so much money to you, but your bank is Barclays. And it's the recipient is Mid-Counties. And several times she said, are you sure? Do you know the recipient? I said, listen, read what I've said. Mid-Counties Co-op, yes. I said, well, you're a Co-op Bank, yes. Well, don't you get it? Because I'm not scared of investing money in Mid-Counties. Eventually, they put it through. It was as if it was a scam. And it certainly isn't, and it's a damn good interest rate, and I reckon you should all do it. But could you maybe perhaps promise that now that the Co-op Bank is now mutual again, with the Coventry Building Society, that you move your accounts back to the Co-op Bank? I'm not being patronising, but I'm not sure if they take big accounts anymore, but I'd really be good. Then I wouldn't get the question of, are you sure you want to invest in them? But that's the quick question. The other one I wanted to ask was, can the travel people tell us if, and I've checked in other travel agencies, if the number of people going to the USA has dropped this year in preference to Canada? Because I've certainly changed my mind where I'm going. And let's perhaps not promote that other place.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Phil to respond.
Yeah, I mean, I'll let Peter answer the specifics on the pricing. Obviously, we mentioned earlier we've launched our new Mutual Vision platform, which means that it's going to be easier for members to interact on investments and manage their share accounts, which is brilliant. It's just live this week. Another one of Jacob's, I think, we've been involved with it. Is it? It's not live for members yet, but it's live for us. Sorry, I should have said that. So it's just don't commit me, but it will be live for members in the next few weeks, I think. End of June, is it? Yeah, okay. But on the sort of broader point, the Co-op Bank, we do work with the Co-op Bank. We are one of the societies that does actually use the Co-operative Bank as part of our revolving credit facility, and that was really great for us to get back involved with the Co-operative Bank before they actually became part of the Coventry, and so it was a delight that they're now part of the Coventry. So we'll let Peter add to that, and then I may ask my colleague at the back there, Mark Mitchell, who's our head of Co-op Holidays, just to say whether or not we've seen US trade drop down or not, specifically to answer that question. But Peter, do you want to?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Just to remind members, that actually our banking syndicate, there are 4 banks, of which the Co-op Bank is one. Co-op Bank came onto that syndicate 2 years ago and proudly extending the loan with us now. Obviously, they're part of the Coventry Building Society now. They don't offer a range of corporate banking facilities, and nor do the Coventry Building Society, but they're part of that syndicate, and we will be making sure that whatever we do in banking and finance will be with our syndicate, with them as part of it. You mentioned Mutual Vision platform. It's got a snappy title, Pro V. That won't be the title it goes out to members with. But what that is that's a proper banking platform now. And that was designed with smaller building societies and mutuals in mind. Coventry are not part of that, actually, but it's smaller building societies and mutuals designed that banking platform for organisations such as building societies primarily, but as ours, that need a banking app but don't need the sort of full banking app, all the security you'd expect. So that's why we've done that. And back to investments, the investment rate is very good at the moment. The Bank of England base rate came down a couple of weeks ago, so we will be looking at that soon. It is quite a good interest rate. But why we have that there is because, this is a member-owned organisation. Most members, in fact all members who join the society have a share in the society, and in many cases that's the £1 they invest when they join. But there are other members that also invest more in various other share capital, and there are other members that do that. And so we pay an attractive rate of interest to reward our members to do that, and actually that means that actually we'd rather, in many cases, promote member investment in the society rather than other investment in the society. In reality, we need both, but we're happy to have that sort of balance. So I'm glad that you're promoting it for us, and the more the merrier. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And Mark, could you just take the question on US versus Canada, please?
Yeah, thank you. So in terms of customers visiting Canada instead of the US, I'm not sure whether that's directly happened, but we have seen a small drop in US visitors throughout the year, but it has moved up and down. So certainly, throughout the period where Trump was announcing a lot of the tariff initiatives, we saw bookings to New York drop slightly. It's fair to say that there haven't been significant drops in demand. US obviously is a big country, and within that, Florida bookings have continued to be good. It was the New York part, the city break part, that was affected slightly more than Florida. And then, of course, when the tariff announcements began to dampen down and that news began to soften a little bit, there was a big promotion from Disney called a Disney Dine promotion, which encourages customers to book early to get dining advantages for their Disney holidays in Florida. And we saw Florida bookings being really, really successful in the last 6 or 7 weeks on the back of that initiative. So in summary, yeah, a small decline, but the movement is happening from month to month, depending really what's coming out of Donald Trump in the White House, I guess.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to move us on now because we must have the voting results. Edward, would you like to announce the results?
Yes, I'll just run through these quickly. All passed very comfortably. The two that were close. Co-op party, so 71% in favour, 29% against. And then on the rule stuff, that was passed after the amendment, funny enough, was the same as the Co-op party, 7.21% in favour of the rule amendment, 29% against. You might have seen me staring at the screen there. They all come up on the screen there, the votes. And then the rule, as amended, was 82% in favour, 18% against. And there you go.
Thank you very much. So that brings our formal AGM to a close. I hope you found the last couple of hours informative and a bit lively. For those of you who are online, thank you very much for taking the trouble to join. And for those of you who are here, have a good journey home, but do stay and chat if you want to. And lastly, look out for our communications about our half-year meeting, which is scheduled for the 7th of October. Thank you.